When I was growing up, my parents used to tell me, we as kids, we used to gather around the fireplace after dinner, and our parents used to tell us stories about life, and they tell me the Ananse story, so we call it Ananse Sam in the Ashanti language, and one of them is this, like, they normally have a story, a theme attached to it. This was to deter people who are greedy. The story goes like this. Ananse, who is the proverbial spider, but is the main character in this story, had a farm. He had a farm and he used his kids. He had 4 or 5 kids, and each of them had a very unique name. One was Nankonhia because his legs were too long and too tiny. The other one was Tikedenkene because his head was a bit bigger than normal. And then we had Asoya was his wife. So he used his neighbors and everybody helped him to build the farm. Those days, they had a lot of communal help. If you have the land, everybody in the community helps you to bring forth the land. And during harvest time, everybody is supposed to help you, and you're supposed to give, as a token of their help, give them a little bit of the produce from the farm. So Anansi saw that the harvest was very, very rich. The land had yielded a lot of crops. But he was very greedy, so he didn't know. He wanted to find a way to outwit his neighbors who had helped him to cultivate the farm by not giving them any of the produce from the harvest. So he decided upon a scheme. The scheme he took was that he feigned death, but so he was sick and bedridden, and then he called all the elders of the village and his children and his wife, and he told them that when he dies, he should be buried on his farm, and he wouldn't like to be buried in the cemetery. So they agreed to his wishes. 2-3 days later, Ananse died, quote unquote, and he said no funeral, no elaborate ceremony and all those. So, but he had designed his own coffin before he died. The coffin that he had designed, the coffin had holes in it, so he could breathe through the coffin, but none of the people knew because he had built his own coffin. So when he died, they put him in the coffin. He had already selected a place in the center of the farm where he wanted to be buried. So they buried him in the middle of the farm. And he also, among his death wish, didn't want too much soil to be put on the grave, saying that his spirit should be free to roam around. And that also, he knew that if there was too much soil on the grave, it would crush him and he wouldn't be able to So every night, Anansi would escape through the coffin because he had a secret pathway that he could get out of the coffin. And then go and start eating the produce from the farm. So the family will come to the farm every day and notice that somebody seems to be taking a chunk of the harvest. Some of the crops have been harvested, but they could not find out who did it. So this went on for about 2 weeks. They buried the guy, he's dead, so nobody suspected that it was Anansi who was doing this, playing these tricks. So his kids decided that they will try and find out, they will lay a trap and to catch whoever was the culprit. What they did was they designed a rubber man. They got the rubber man and put him in the middle of the farm, very close to where the father's burial place was, because the idea was that so the guy wouldn't come to steal the father's. Normally in Africa, when you die, they bury you with a lot of your wealth. It could be gold trinkets, it could be valuables that they think you treasure, because they believe that you're going on a journey. And with the journey, you might need some money, you might need certain things that they could use for these things. So Anansi said, okay. The family said, okay. They designed the rubber man and put him in the middle of the farm. So the first night after this came, Anansi got out of the grave, came out, and then he saw a shadow, so he didn't know what it was. He looked at it and said, "Who is this?" Nobody said nothing because it was a dummy robber man. He asked a couple of questions. The guy didn't speak. So he became a bit alarmed, and instead of going normally to get his produce and eat, because he had been hungry, sitting in the grave all day. So he went closer, and he didn't want to go too close for fear that he might be, because these guys had put something in the guy's hand like a stick. So from afar, it looked like a gun or something. So Ananse said, "Who is this? You won't call your name?" So he got closer, and then he got angry because the guy he said, "You wouldn't answer me? If you don't talk, I'll slap you." So the robber man, of course, could not talk. So Ananse threw his right hand, intending to give the guy a slap. And then his hand got stuck on the robber. He said, "Let me go, let me go, let me go." The guy wouldn't release him. So with the second one, so both arms were now stuck, and he was dangling. So he decided he would kick the guy up. So he kicked him with the left foot, that got stuck. He kicked with the right, and that got stuck. So now he couldn't free himself. And he started struggling. The more he struggled, the tighter he got to the robber man. Eventually, it was dawn, and he got alarmed. Daybreak was coming, and he didn't know what to do. He tried to roll himself over with the guy, but that guy wouldn't let him go. Because of the darkness, he could not see, and his mind did not tell him that it was a robber man, a dummy. So daybreak, and our friend was fasting to this robber man. The kids had to come to farm to check on their trap, their scheme. So when they came, they said, the first boy in Tikuma, he said, "Looks like we've got our trap, our device has worked. We got somebody." But they never suspected that it was their father. So eventually, they went home and picked up more people, more crowds. So they came to the farm, singing and chanting to find out who the culprit was. Lo and behold, when they go closer, they saw that it was their own father. And he was ashamed. They took him home and asked him what was happening. What was the cause? Why him? They thought he was dead. And he said that he had devised a way to make so that all the produce from the harvest would have come to him alone. And unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. His kids have betrayed him, and he's been caught. Now, the moral of the story is that you cannot be too greedy, and that what everybody helps you to achieve, once you also get it, you should also give back to the community that helped you. So these are one of the stories that we grew up learning, and that tells us that you cannot be too greedy. You have to learn to share when you are in a community.